welcome back to Smithy. Today we're going to finally finish the railroad spike knife. I currently have it in the forge getting a temperature, and let's go ahead and just finish up the last bit of forging and then get it all cleaned up. Alright, so I'm super excited to get this knife done. I've been working on it for the past, well, not past weekish kind of. Been 3 days of effort kind of consolidated into one massive project. Right here I'm just trying to get the final shape in. The base of the knife is actually a little thicker, so I was trying to bang that out right here, get that a little thinner, so it's a little bit more uniform. Unfortunately, around the middle, it got a little thin from where I was trying to forge weld it so many times. I don't know if you can kind of see the middle part, but that will come back to bite me later. You'll see why. But right here, I'm just getting ready my 1-inch belt sander. It took me a couple times to realize what would be a good way of really finishing up a knife, and I've determined that the belt sander for the rough job really isn't that great. Well, at least this particular 1-inch belt sander. I found out that about a 4-inch belt sander is much better. So this was me trying to use the belt, but I was quickly realizing that it wasn't going to work. So resorted to the cutting wheel. And the cutting wheel is not cutting wheel, the grinding wheel on the side. And the sanding wheel is pretty nice for small stuff, and you can really get in there and be real precise. But for what I'm trying to do here, I don't know if it's very appropriate. Just really the 4-inch belt sander. You can't really go wrong with it. It's pretty great. You'll see that later, and makes my life so much more easy. But right here, it's kind of nice for putting the drop point on it. It really lets you get a nice point on things, and that's what I like it for, really. Just getting it down to that really fine point to the very tip of the blade. But, as you can see by the sparks, this is definitely a lot better steel than the railroad spike that's forge welded to it. The flares of the carbon are just going everywhere, and the kind of firework looking effect is from the carbon in the steel just igniting once it comes into the air, or so I'm told. Oh yeah, just trying to get the basic shape roughed out, trying to get the spine of the blade relatively smooth and relatively level, as well as the front cutting edge. I found out after one bad experience, or a couple, that when it comes to a knife, you want to make sure that the spine is really flat in the back, but more importantly that the cutting edge is super flat, or else you're going to have a real hard time sharpening it. It's going to get really annoying, because when you go to sharpen it, it's going to be really wavy, and that's just going to be a pain in the butt to actually get done. So sometimes you just gotta like take off a little bit from the front just to make it all uniform. So this right here, this is my benchtop grinder, and it's really nice for putting on secondary bevels, but I quickly realizing that it's not the best tool of choice for primary bevels. Right here, I'm trying to make it work for a primary bevel, but it's really not getting as shallow of an angle as, well, I guess, what do we, steep or shallow? I don't know. I'm trying to make the pitch less, the pitch of the slope going down. I'm trying to make that smaller. And this really isn't the right tool for that. It's good for making a steep pitch bevel going down. And that's great for a secondary bevel, just before you put it on the sharpening stone and get it all honed up. But for the primary bevel, it's really not the best. That's where the 4-inch belt sander, I find, works far better than this does. And I'll switch to it pretty soon once I realize what I'm doing here. So my beveling is a little out of order for this project. I kind of cut the one first and then the first one second, which is kind of weird when you think about it, but ended up working out pretty okay at the end. So can't complain too much. But yeah. I believe that right there where I bumped my hand into the other cutting wheel. These things hurt if you get your hand up into it, and there's 2 cutting wheels here, and with such a long piece like this, it's really hard not to bump your hand into it. So next time I think I'll wear a glove, at least on my left hand. But I'm a little hesitant because I'm worried that the glove will get kind of like sucked into the spinning wheel if it's loose at all, and so I don't want that happening either, my hand getting sucked in it. This is a simple way of slowing down the grinding wheels, I find. You can wait for a while, but they're on the ball bearings on these things are so amazing that they'll just keep on spinning for minutes if you don't put a block of wood or a piece of metal up against it to slow it down. You do not want to use a finger or a hand to slow it down either. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I try to hammer out most of the thickness to get it uniform, but if you notice, I'm concentrating most of my grinding on the first little bit of the knife because that's the thickest part. And so even though I tried to concentrate my efforts on that area when I was forging, it still ended up not being totally flat. Here's where I'm finally realizing that this 4-inch belt sander is much better. Now this is really a handheld belt sander. It's an old Makita from the 80s, but it's still going strong. But if you turn it on its back, you can kind of get it to work. Maybe one day I'll build a little wooden jig that holds it in place, but for now, it's kind of working as is, just on top of this old workmate. But it does a pretty good job at grinding in primary bevels and also hiding all the terrible hammer marks that I left behind because I got a little too heavy with the hammer. So it's good at hiding bad mistakes and also getting the spine worked out. It's a really nice handy tool to have. You can get a good big old belt sander that's nice to have. Really the 1-inch belt sander is more to replace hand sanding, just to get a nice polish mirror finish on the knife. So on the side of the knife, like what I'm doing there, that's where the 1-inch belt sander is great because you can just really just go up in the grit starting low and then eventually get about 800 grit. And here I'm using the grinding wheel on my angle grinder. This is another little trick I use to get out hammer marks. I really need to be more diligent about lining up my blows near the end of the project, but right here where I was trying to forge weld it, I couldn't really line it up too much without sacrificing the weld. Next time I think I'll start with a thicker piece. And here is me quenching the knife. This is right before disaster happens. So that's what it looked like. And then I set it down.
Great sadness has occurred.
And as you can
looks
see,
like we're gonna have to shorten it a little.
It broke in half. So what I did there was basically just I reforged a little bit and then ground a little bit back into kind of Tonto shape. And you'll see here in a second what I mean. It's more of a Tonto knife. It's a little shorter, but it turned out pretty okay in the end. Not too disappointed.
So the original plan was to etch this so I could see the difference in the metal. Unfortunately, under all that cat litter and baking soda is my etchant. Yeah. Alright, got it all done. So it turned out just to be a Tonto blade, nothing too fancy. Yeah, pretty sure I salvaged it pretty okay. One problem that I have noticed is that there's a slight, full focus, there we go. There's a slight bowing in the blade. I don't know if you can see it right there. And that's because when I was hitting it with the hammer, I only had one side on the anvil, so it kind of naturally went down that direction. But besides that, I think it's turned out pretty okay, so not too disappointed with how it came. So yeah, that's the end of this series. I finally got it done. If you like this, feel free to subscribe, and I'll keep you updated with future videos and projects.